So most people seem to have missed this little golden nugget of information that was revealed by Elon during the Tesla Q2 earnings call. Elon said, and I quote, Starlink terminals that are in Tesla vehicles could be used as ground relays for cell phones or like Wi-Fi. But anyone can do that with a stationary terminal too. What does that mean? I have Brian Wong with me for his analysis of how SpaceX and Tesla might just be poised to transform the infrastructure layer of the direct-to-cell business. Brian is a futurist thought leader and runs the prominent science blog nextbigfuture.com. Welcome, Brian. We're just beginning to find these little nuggets and pearls of information, and they're all mind-blowing.
Yes, they are. I think I was mistaken before in thinking that they would need to buy certain other traditional assets, and they can just leverage their own capabilities, so they don't have to pay anyone rent. They can just build out faster and cheaper than any other plan.
Yeah. And let me quickly bring up your article. This is on your blog, your website, nextbigfuture.com, where you look at the details of the Tesla superchargers, Powerwall, and Cybercaps providing Starlink urban coverage. I'll leave a link to this in the description to this video. But you have a deck that you want to take us through. So please, over to you.
So you have all the Starlink satellites. So you have the ones that are doing high-speed internet, and then you have other ones that are doing direct to your cell phone. So currently we have only 650 B2 minis that help provide services like text and voice and low bandwidth communication for that. But the version 3s will up the capacity by 20 or 100 times from those ones. So then we'll go from a 2G, 3G type scenario to 4G and 5G scenario. So it's fully competitive in many ways with the current cell phone systems.
Yeah.
But then by adding what they call small cell technology, you can put communications in the vehicles where you can reach out with 1 watt of power to 400 meters. And if you were able to boost it up to 50 watts for certain like Powerwall, add a communication to a Powerwall or to a supercharger, then you can reach out to 1,500, maybe 2,000 meters, a mile or more.
Wow.
So then you can use that to fill out all this communication where you want it. Kind of like if I have a router coming into my home, but I have a bigger home, I may need to have a mesh inside my home. So basically it's giving you a mesh so that you can fill out everywhere you're doing. And also my mesh can convert it from I must communicate with whatever band to the satellite to the mesh says I can then switch over to other bandwidth, like Wi-Fi, whatever it is that's local, so that I can communicate more easily. So it's fills out the network. It also increases the speed and reliability in many areas. So it's just in all just a better system to improve the service at low cost for Starlink.
For dense urban areas also. Right?
And for dense urban areas also. There's still issues. The most challenging part for dense urban areas, because even with 15,000 satellites globally, I would only have 450 over the United States. And then I'm limited by how many beams are in each satellite. But we're going to go up to probably 100 or more beams in the version 3 satellites. And you could have a version 3.1 that could have, again, more beams. So then we can get more and more subscribers into the system. So
it's scalable. Basically, it is scalable. So my rudimentary understanding of cellular technology is when you go from 2G to 4G and 5G and 6G, you need essentially a traditional telecom service provider would have these cell towers, right?
Right.
And when you go up from 2G to, let's say, 4G and 5G, you need a greater density of these cellular towers because the reach of each cellular tower as you go up is lesser, it's shorter. Right. You also have a decreased capability to penetrate thick walls of buildings. Right. So essentially, what we've witnessed, every country, every urban area that has gone from 2G to 4G to 5G has seen an increase in these number of rooftop cell towers, right?
Right.
So there have been causes like a lot of controversy because it's real estate, costing all of that involved. But then if you could remove all of that and now replace it with cybercabs,
Right.
which are roaming around urban areas, they're
Right.
distributed as it is. And remember, the cybercabs are now, we've seen the post from Tesla where the cybercabs have the V5 version
Mhm.
of the terminals.
Right.
Embedded built into the roof, which is crazy how they do it. I would
Yeah.
love to see a video of how they do that. But I mean, this is, oh my God, this is science fiction, right? Because you
Right.
you have these distributed network and distributed modem mesh on the move,
Mhm.
um, and it's naturally deployed. Where, I mean, think about it. Your cybercabs are going to service the highest density, highest demand, highest human population areas in an
Mhm.
urban sprawl.
Right.
So by default, your mesh extends to these areas and
Right.
is serving these areas. And then
Right.
you're saying, in addition to this, you're going to have all the power walls and charging stations, all of that also embedded. So that's
Yeah.
pretty
Whether you
crazy.
go to all, you would, you'd try and make sense as to, where you fill in, because it would still cost you some money. Although,
Mhm.
instead of $200,000 to pull in a fiber endpoint, you would pay like
Right.
$3,000,
Yeah.
$5,000 for a W-band terminal coming
Right.
into the location. So they have these things that are 60 times cheaper in order to solve a particular problem on the network. So
This is crazy.
satellite technology or this communication technology. And
Yeah.
then the advantage of going to cyber cabs for the small cells is
Yeah.
they don't have to pay another $200,000 to put equipment into a cell tower. They don't have to pay a lease to the cell tower
Yes.
company of
Yeah.
like thousands of dollars per month,
Yeah.
$10,000 per month to say, okay, I want to have this, like, I don't have to hold that location. I can just, where I have locations, I fill in, like the superchargers, like the power walls,
Mhm.
like any new mega pack or other things. They can work with the infrastructure they have, which has power, which has other communications with other stuff. So they just add on in order to fill out their service. And
That's
then
crazy because, I mean,
yeah,
if you look at it from a business perspective, if you have like a restaurant or a drive-in or something, and you want to put superchargers there for your customers to come, you can also have something like this mesh extend to there. So you're also earning from that, right?
right. Yeah, so I don't think that they would want to have things where they're paying huge amounts, but where they can rationalize how much they pay with the benefit that they're getting for the network, and they can just look at the incremental costs of, like, where do I want to upgrade my network, where it needs to be. Like, if I don't build it out if there's no demand, right? So I
True.
only yeah, so I'll make that
That's one of
happen.
the biggest biggest challenges, right? For traditional, like, let's say, cell tower companies. Like,
Mhm.
how do you map where the demand is,
Yeah,
right? And it's
yeah,
I mean, beyond the point, you're taking a risk by extending your cell tower network. But
right,
here you're getting data in real time.
right, right. That's correct.
Cool. Let's go through your slides, please.
Yeah. So you have the blue thing, which is the Starlink satellite network, which is going to increase to 15,000 version 3s, up from 650 version 2s. They'll really get going middle of next year as
Mhm.
we get a lot more stuff, because they'll increase the high speed internet. And then beyond that, there'll be 100,000 V4, something like that. So they'll further increase another 20 times. So they can continue to just, like, I'll just make this bigger and bigger. So people say it can't be done with BLA network. Every 2 or 3 years, they're gonna step up like 10, 20, 50 times of capability. Supercharger sites, so they have all this ground uh, things that they can upgrade, where it has power, where it could have, other communication nodes. They can, and then there's million the power walls. They have a million power walls. They're working on the second million. So those also have like 10 kilowatts of power each. So they have all kinds of ground infrastructure when they work with Tesla on this capability. And then with Cybercab, there'll be the millions of vehicles, already 10 million vehicles. Cybercabs will become that. They'll convert, like, the new Model Y Ls and Ys could also have the satellite communication in there. So um, they can they'll convert over to activate the infrastructure that they have at low cost. And there won't be big installation costs because they will build it into at the factory $100 increment to everything versus installing something new that's expensive. And then they'll then communicate to the phones and other devices. It may not just be phones. The goal is that they control the endpoint. Like right now, for X or for Google or for Facebook, they're paying to Apple iPhone to get access to 1 billion customers, or they have to, so getting to endpoints, getting to 3 billion customers, that's the ultimate goal. So
Yeah.
even if you couldn't charge $50, $100 per month, right? You'd want to charge a higher number. You want to do a service that's high value.
Yeah.
One of the bigger things is that you are not having to pay $30 billion a year to Apple to access the thing, because that's why Meta was paying tens of billions of dollars to try and get an Oculus type device,
Yes.
because they were like device constrained, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be able to have your AI, your all your X payments, all these other services, in front of 3 billion, 5 billion people. That is the most important aspect of this, and that multiplies the revenue that you have for all those other things. And then you also want to provide a paid service for direct to cell phone. But that is, I think, even secondary to, I want to be in front of and controlling an endpoint to 3 billion or 5 billion people.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, the next slide. So this is where you'd have superchargers all on the highways and roads, and then you can have cars that are in all the downtown areas, all wherever the people are, the cars will be, and then you can fill in with the green dots that are power walls. So basically, you can get this full coverage of an entire area, and then just depends what you're prioritizing, how you go at it. But there's the capability to have a complete coverage.
Just immediately, Brian, I'm just thinking of say the country where I grew up, India. Vast, different terrains, challenging terrain, mountains, valleys, deserts. And then thinking of the capex that was involved in building cell tower networks. The government, of course, supported that. But also, there were private companies like Reliance that got into the laying fiber cables all over. And that just cost hundreds and thousands of crores of rupees, right? Like literally billions of dollars over a period of time. And I'm looking at this chart. This is crazy because this transforms that entire infrastructure business, and it does it in such a cost-efficient manner that you deploy capital for this only where you are serving humans.
Right.
And I'm thinking of what Starlink currently provides with direct-to-cell in far-flung areas, in the rural areas, like SMS and basic services, right? And then you augment that with the V3 satellites in the Starlink constellation, and then that you literally have direct-to-cell streaming and all of that. But then it's such a more cost-efficient way to build infrastructure, and it just I don't know, it blows my mind because it feels like this was preordained,
Right.
And it's so simple and elegant to look at it, right?
Right. And then I think that they have more levers and ways to adjust things based on the fact that they have more bandwidth, based on the fact that you can stick a ground station, which I'll have a picture of later, which is a high density node that can be communicating. So like they say, oh, well, you only have, of the 15,000 satellites, you only have like 400, 500 over the United States. And then you're limited by how many beams are in like 10 satellites over New York. Where it's like you could have these nodes in the rural areas that are sucking down or communicating to the system, and then having that use other communication means to relay that bandwidth to and from the thing. So it's like, yes, I can only have line of sight to the to a certain number of satellites overhead, but if there's 50 in the area, I can bring in that capacity through these other means. I think the assumption is that you couldn't do that without line of sight, and I think that that may not be correct. That with the W band and other things, I think that they can be clever with laser links and other stuff like that, where they can and then bouncing the signal up and down, caching. There's a bunch of things that they can do, I think, that would address the problem. And also just more simply just tossing up more and bigger satellites with more
Yeah.
beams and stuff like that. They can just like brute force it. But I think
Yeah,
that
just
there's
proof.
I think there's more things that they have that
Yeah.
they can do.
Oh, I'm sure they have so much more rolled up their sleeves.
Right. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so this is going to that 400 meter, 1500 meter range. It's based on power, 1 watt versus 50 watts. And then, having a well-set supercharger, you can get like really good range out of it. And the thing is, you don't have to solve everything, because a highway-only system, that would be great for a trucking problem. And there's like business and other things where, you could address it. Also, it's like like back when we didn't have as great coverage, like when the older spot of Sprint or other networks, where it's like not as good as Verizon, right? They had
Right.
highway coverage, right?
Right.
So they can get to great highway coverage and great other things by using superchargers. So having these regional corridors and stuff like that gets you, a significant monetary benefit, like hit markets first and then fill out the network. So you will get to complete coverage, you will get to whatever, but you will along the way be able to get the most profitable, the best businesses first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then the costs, there's all these other costs for traditional, low, nodes, cell towers, other things, where it can go to $70,000 for the first year, and they can. Well, I think $4,000 to $10,000 is something that in the near term, 1 year, 2 years, that SpaceX with Tesla can do, and then if they're clever about it, they may be able to do even better with that, with mass production and those kinds of things. So again, they have a lot of uh, scaling capacity that changes the game, where it's like 10, 20 times cheaper than what the other guys are doing. Next slide. And then, based on how many beams you have, which we need to figure out, you can get more and more subscribers. So the people who say that, there's some limitation to that, as they fill this out, getting subscribers per beam, and then how they offer the services, they can get to hundreds of millions of people, globally, and maybe even 100 million in the United States. And so this W band thing, it changes the game in terms of like how much density. It's like, oh, we can't get to however many gigabits per second without fiber and like that. It's like the W band changes that situation. So then, can you get to 5G in the urban areas? And then I think there is a solution there. The details of which need to be looked at, on a technical basis, which I can do. But you're kind of like in the zone where you could get to a lot of coverage. So again, the analysis that you can't do it assumes that you're looking at a different layered network. It's not easy because you're doing certain things on the back end, like trunk lines, versus what's communicating to the people. So here's what those kind of like on the ground gateways are. So there are these round balls that are about like 4, 5, 6 feet in diameter, and then there's equipment underneath that. And so they have these really expensive ones for like really hardcore 10 gigabit per second type things. These are older ones that existed, and they've now upgraded them, or are in the process of upgrading them with different bands, like using the W band, where they can get to more high speed communication. So each one's doing different things, but suffice it to say that you can get to fiber replacement, and it's part of the back end network that you won't the normal person won't be interfacing with, but which enables the global communication that we're talking about. Just like there's all this um, CDN, like content distribution networks, where you have companies like Apache, where they're caching all the internet, and there's this layer of efficiency that you don't normally see, but you experience with the internet. Next slide just shows this. These are on rooftops and other places. So go to the next slide, showing what it looks like on the roof. Yeah, so this is a building where you have to have the roof, and then on top of it, because you want elevation where you can reach other places. So those are basically the slides of like one that you can use all the various infrastructure that Tesla has in order to extend the reach and quality of direct-to-cell phone, high-speed internet. So again, how SpaceX and Tesla work better together in order to crack these global problems.
Indeed. And, I was just looking for this particular filing from SpaceX, and I found it. Let me just share it on screen. This was the FCC filing from SpaceX for the now famous 100,000 satellite constellation for the Gen 3 satellites to support the AI Internet of Things era of communication.
Right.
And this was filed on
July 6th.
July 6th, yeah. And it's just signposting everything.
Yeah.
It's like the breadcrumbs have been there.
Right. And then the 100,000 satellites in there, they're talking about, and we're using D-band, W-band, like all these
correct
E-band things, which don't mean anything to most people. And it's like, oh, they can use that for the backhaul. They can use this to move tens of gigabytes, hundreds of gigabytes, terabits per second all around the world, right? Because they have these other ways to communicate. They're higher density.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should tease the next conversation that we're going to have, because it's going to really excite people. So let me bring this up on screen. And this is from the FCC. Just in the past 24 hours, FCC proposes opening unlicensed Bluetooth and Wi-Fi bands for space-based communications. This is pretty crazy, because this will potentially help Starlink extend its direct-to-cell model beyond licensed cellular spectrum, letting the satellites in the constellation talk directly to everyday, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth devices, and over time just integrate all of those devices into a hybrid satellite cellular network. This is literally the Internet of Things for the AI era, right?
Right.
And it's pretty crazy that all this is happening in real time as we speak, days ahead of the Q2 earnings call. I'm really excited to hear a lot more. I hope Elon and Gwyn share more details about what's going on, because this is fascinating. I mean, this is science fiction turning into reality, really, right before our eyes.
Yeah, it'll be a entire global communication system reaching every square meter of the planet, where it's like have communication going everywhere.
Yeah, and think about it. I mean, all those devices, all the smart devices in the Internet of Things, including Optimus, right? Your autonomous cars, your robots of every form and factor, everything will need to be connected. Everything will need a data network. Everything will need to talk to everything around it.
Right. Yes.
And this is literally being built with regulatory support in real time before our eyes. So this is crazy. And to everybody watching, stay tuned. Brian and I are going to do a deep dive into everything that this means and a lot more. So that'll be coming up soon. So yeah, I mean, what is your wish list on this aspect? What would you like to hear during the Q2, the first earnings call of SpaceX? That's the Q2 coming up on the 4th of August.
Well, I think the key thing is the AI data center aspect. Because that's the main revenue. So how much have they built out? Have they gotten the 1.5, 2 gigawatt that Colossus 2? How quickly will they install the chips? And then how do they plan to monetize that? Because that is the critical question. If they can answer that clearly, then they could say that's the difference between them only making $50 or $100 billion next year and making $200 billion next year. It's and then making, $10 billion of profit versus, $50 billion. So how they are doing stuff with AI is critical for that.
I would imagine you'd want to fold Terafab or any first breadcrumbs of information, nuggets of information about Terafab into that.
Right. Yeah. You'd want to know what they're doing with Terafab and how that integrates in. But the in terms of like near term, moving the stock, it's tough to
AI.
It's AI and near term because
Not
Terafab,
Starlink and communications.
Starlink communications does matter, but it's less important than the AI part because AI is $28 billion annualized revenue from the 3 deals, right? Starlink is like, $15 billion per year, right? So it's already only half of that. They're both growing like crazy, but it's kind of like it's the 28 billion could easily go to, 80, $100 billion next year. So that, and then Starlink, because you're limited by, I gotta launch satellites, I gotta build dishes, 1.5 million dishes per month, right? I can only grow so fast. I can only double or triple my revenue on that, where the other thing can go even faster. So it's just so they're both important. I want to hear both of them. And also like what, like they should describe, here's our small cell zone plan, and here's how that works, that scales out, because they may announce something like we need to buy blah in order to make this go faster, right? Or we need to deploy these things, and what will be the deployment. I'm not anticipating them to give that details because on the directed cell phone, it's difficult to understand. It would be tough for them to make giving them, say, hey, we're going to do some actually a relay point. They mentioned that in the Tesla call. It's like for me to unpack that and to figure that out.
Especially for Wall Street.
It takes off Wall Street, right?
Yeah,
if they say I'm going to have 3 more contracts that are worth $30 billion, that's easy to understand. Right.
For plain speak, I really hope Gwyn plays a big role in these calls.
Right. Because, I'm hoping that too.
Yeah, Elon tends to be technical, and he tends to kind of have the big picture ideas, but they need to be translated into the common man speak for Wall Street. I mean, we get it, right? Because we do the deep dives, but for Wall Street to get it, it's really, really important. And I'm really hoping Gwyn plays a much, much bigger role.
Right. There's other things that would be, good to know in terms of, SpaceX and Starship, but SpaceX and Starship is just to show it, like them saying we're going to do it over the next. They've said it before. Hey, we're going to launch every month. We're going to do all these things, but until they, in maybe next 2 launches, launch satellites, recover these upper stage and lower stage, like for me to interpret the fact that yes, they're close on this thing, it's going to solve it. Other people disagree. They can say, "Oh, well, I don't believe it didn't happen." So then they have to.
It's more like a show and tell. I mean, you show, you don't need to tell.
Right. You show what you don't need to tell.
It speaks for itself. Yeah. Of course, Brian and I have done a deep dive on his thoughts on the cadence going up to 1,500 launches in 2028. So that's going to be really fascinating to see. I will link that at the end of this video, so please do check it out. But for now, thank you so much, Brian. Always a pleasure to pick your brain, and I'm looking forward to the next chat about the FCC post, because it's a rabbit hole. Could be a wormhole. It could take us to a whole new future. I think it will. But for now, it looks like a delicious rabbit hole to go down. So thank you. Looking forward to the next.
Okay.